Smooth, authoritative, and stable. This one was stained with something purple. This one had a hole in the sleeve. This one was missing a back, an entire back. It was just a front of a shirt and two sleeves clinging on for dear life. "Christopher," Anna said, turning the garment over in her hands, "how do you do these things?" Everyone had their small wonderland. For her brother Christopher and Uncle Henry, it was the laboratory. For Cousin James and Uncle Will, the library. For Lucy, her writing desk, where she wrote her long adventures for Cordelia Carstairs. For Matthew Fairchild, it was any troublesome corner of London. For Anna Lightwood, it was her brother's wardrobe. In many ways, it was very good to have a brother who was largely oblivious about his clothes. Anna could have taken Christopher's coat right off his back, and he would hardly have noticed. The only downside was that Christopher's clothes had suffered fates no clothes should suffer. They were dipped in acids, brushed by fire, poked with sharp objects, left out in the rain. His wardrobe was like a museum of experiment and disaster, tattered, stained, charred, and stinking of sulfur. To Anna, though, the clothes were still precious. Christopher was over visiting the Institute and Uncle Henry, so he would be gone for hours. Her mother and father were both out in the park with her baby brother, Alexander. This was her golden hour, and there was no time to waste. Christopher was taller than her now and growing all the time. This meant that his older trousers suited her frame. She chose a pair, found the least damaged shirt, and a passable gray-striped waistcoat. She dug through the pile of ties, scarves, kerchiefs, cuffs, and collars that lay on the bottom of Christopher's wardrobe and selected the most passable items. On his dressing stand, she found a hat that had a sandwich in it. It was ham, Anna noted, as she tipped it out and dusted out the crumbs. Once she had everything she needed, she bundled it all under her arm and slipped out into the hall, shutting his door quietly. Anna's room was so different from her brother's. Her walls were papered in a dusty rose. There was a white lace coverlet, a pink vase with lilacs next to her bed. Her cousin Lucy thought her bedroom quite charming. Anna had different tastes. Given her choice, the paper would be a rich, deep green, her decor black and gold. She would have a deep chaise longue on which she could read and smoke. Still, she had a long dressing mirror, and that was all that mattered right now. Christopher's mirror had met its fate in an experiment in which he attempted to magnify the effect of glamours. It had not been replaced. She drew the curtains against the warm summer sun and began to change. Anna had long forsworn wearing a corset. She had no interest in squeezing her internal organs into a lump or pushing her small bosom up. She slipped out of her tea-gown, letting it drop to the floor. She kicked it away. Off went the stockings, down came the hair. The trousers were tucked in at the ankle to adjust for height. A few adjustments of the waistcoat hid the damage to the shirt. She put one of his black ascots around her slender neck and tied it expertly. Then she took the derby that had been hosting the ham sandwich and placed it on her head, tucking her black hair carefully up under it and arranging it until it appeared that her hair was shorn short. Anna stood before the mirror, examining the effect. The waistcoat flattened her chest a bit. She tugged it up and adjusted it until the fit was right. She rolled the legs of the trousers and knocked the hat down over her eye. There. Even in these clothes, stains and ham sandwiches and all, her confidence swelled. She was no longer a gangly girl who looked awkward in ribbons and flounces. Instead, she looked elegant, her lean body complemented by more severe tailoring, the waistcoat nipping in her slim waist and flaring over her narrow hips. Imagine what she could do with Matthew Fairchild's wardrobe. He was a real peacock, with his colorful waistcoats and ties and the beautiful suits. She walked back and forth a bit, tipping her hat to imaginary ladies. She bowed, pretending to be taking the hand of a fair maiden, keeping her eyes turned up. Always keep the fair maiden's eye as you press your lips to her hand. "Enchanted," she said to her imaginary lady. "Would you care for a dance?" The lady would be delighted to dance. Anna crooked her arm around the waist of her phantom beauty. She had danced with her many times. Though Anna could not see her face, she swore she could feel the fabric of her lover's dress, the soft swooshing noise it made as it brushed the floor. The lady's heart was fluttering as Anna pressed her hand. Her lady would wear a delicate scent, orange blossom perhaps. Anna would press her face closer to the lady's ear and whisper, "You are quite the most beautiful girl here," Anna would say. The lady would blush and press closer. "Anna!" She dropped her airy companion to the floor in her surprise. "Anna!" her mother called again. "Where are you?" Anna hurried to her door and opened it just a crack. "Here," she said in a panic. "Can you come down, please?" "Of course," Anna replied, already pulling at the ascot around her neck. "Coming." Anna had to step right through her fallen dancing partner in her haste. Off with the waistcoat, the trousers, everything, off, off, off. She shoved the clothes into the bottom of her wardrobe. The discarded dress was hastily put back on, her fingers fumbling on the buttons. Everything about girls' clothing was fussy and complicated. Several minutes later, she hurried downstairs, attempting to look composed. Her mother, Cecily Lightwood, was sifting through a stack of letters at her desk in the sitting room. "We ran into Inquisitor Bridgestock while we were walking," she said. "The Bridgestocks have just arrived from Idris. They've asked us to dine with them this evening." "Dinner with the Inquisitor," Anna said. "What a thrilling way to spend an evening." "It is necessary," her mother said simply. "We must go. Can you keep an eye on Christopher while we are talking? Make sure he doesn't set anything on fire, or anyone." "Yes," Anna said automatically, "of course." It would be a dreadful affair, clave business accompanied by overcooked beef. There were so many other things she could be doing on a fine summer night in London. What if she could walk the streets, finely dressed, a beautiful girl on her arm? Someday the lady would not be imaginary. The clothes would not be borrowed and ill-fitting. Someday she would stride down the street and women would fall at her feet, not failing to notice her perfectly polished brogues, and men would tip their hats to a lady-killer more accomplished than they. Just not tonight. It was still sunny when the Lightwood family got into their carriage that evening. There were costermongers out and flower sellers and bootblacks, and so many lovely girls walking in their light summer dresses. Did they know how lovely they were? Did they look at Anna and see the way she looked at them? Her brother Christopher bumped gently against her as they rode. "This seems like a long route to the Institute," he noted. "We're not going to the Institute," Anna said. "Aren't we?" "We're having dinner with the Inquisitor," her father said. "Oh," Christopher said. And with that he was off in his own thoughts, as ever inventing something in his mind, working out a calculation. In this, Anna felt close to her brother. They were both somewhere else in their minds at all times. The Bridgestocks lived in Fitzrovia, just off of Cavendish Square. Theirs was a fine 3-across townhouse. The paint on the shiny black door looked like it could still be wet, and there were electric lights outside. A servant showed them into a dark and close reception room where the Inquisitor and his wife greeted them. They took little notice of Anna except to say what a charming young lady she was. Smooth, authoritative, and stable. She and Christopher sat politely on stiff chairs and added a decorative element to a dreary occasion. The dinner gong finally sounded, and everyone shuffled through to the dining room. Anna and Christopher were seated at the far end of the table, and there was an empty place set across from her. Anna ate her asparagus soup and stared at a painting of a ship on the wall. The ship was in the throes of a storm, the masts on fire, and on the verge of disintegrating into the sea. "Did you hear they are building a portal in the guard?" the Inquisitor asked Anna's parents. "Oh dear," Mrs. Bridgestock said, shaking her head. "Is that a good idea? What if it were to let demons through?" Anna envied the ship in the painting, and all who sank in her. "Of course," the Inquisitor droned on, "there's also the matter of money. The consul has rejected the proposal to create an official currency of Idris. A wise decision, very wise. As I was saying earlier, I'm so sorry for my lateness, said a voice. In the doorway of the dining room stood a girl, probably Anna's age, in a midnight blue dress. Her hair was jet black, like Anna's, but fuller, more luxurious, deep as night sky against her soft brown skin. But what captured Anna were her eyes, the color of topaz. Large, the lashes thick. "Ah," the inquisitor said, "this is our daughter, Ariadne. These are the Lightwoods." "I was meeting my tutor," Ariadne said, as a servant pulled out her chair. "We were delayed. I do apologize. It sounds like I came in just as you were debating the new currency. Shadowhunters are an international group. We must blend seamlessly with many international economies. Having our own currency would be a disaster." On that, she plucked up her napkin and turned to Anna and Christopher and smiled. "We have not met," she said. Anna had to force herself to swallow, then to breathe. Ariadne was something beyond the realm of humanity or Shadowhunter. The angel himself must have made her. "Anna Lightwood," Anna said. Christopher was pushing peas onto the back of his fork, unaware that a goddess had seated herself across from him. "And this is my brother Christopher. He can be a bit distracted." She gave him a nudge. "Oh," he said, noticing Ariadne, "I'm Christopher." Even Christopher, now that he had seen Ariadne, could not help but be mesmerized by her. He blinked, taking in the sight. You're not English, are you?" Anna died several deaths inside, but Ariadne simply laughed. "I was born in Bombay," she said. "My parents ran the Bombay Institute until they were killed. I was adopted by the Bridgestocks in Idris." She spoke very plainly, in the tone of someone who has long accepted a set of facts. "What killed your parents?" Christopher asked conversationally. "A group of Ventus demons," Ariadne said. "Oh, I knew someone at the academy that was killed by a Ventus demon." "Christopher," Anna said. "You go to the academy?" Ariadne asked. "Not anymore. I caused one of the wings to explode." Christopher took a bread roll from a plate and happily began buttering it. Anna looked at the painting of the ship again, trying to will herself onto the deck and then into the black, pitiless waters. The most lovely girl in the world had just walked into her life, and in 30 seconds her dear brother had managed to bring up the death of her family, a death at school, and the fact that he had blown up part of the academy. But Ariadne was not looking at Christopher, even as he inadvertently placed his elbow into the butter dish. "Have you caused any explosions?" she asked Anna. "Not yet," Anna replied, "but the evening is young." Ariadne laughed, and Anna's soul sang. She reached over and lifted her brother's elbow from the butter, never taking her gaze from Ariadne. Did she know how beautiful she was? Did she know her eyes were the color of liquid gold, and that songs could be written about the way she turned out her wrist to reach for her glass? Anna had seen beautiful girls before. She had even seen a few beautiful girls who looked at her the way she looked at them. But that was always in passing. They went by on the street, or their gaze lingered a bit long in a shop. Anna had practiced the art of the prolonged stare, the one that invited them, "Come, tell me of yourself. You are lovely." There was something in the way Ariadne was looking at Anna that suggested, no, Anna had to be imagining it. Ariadne was being polite and attentive. She was not eyeing Anna romantically over the dinner table, over the roasted potatoes and the duck. Ariadne's perfection had caused Anna to hallucinate. Ariadne continued to contribute to the conversation at the other end of the table. Anna had never been so interested in the economic policies of Idris. She would study them night and day if she could join Ariadne in discussing them. Every once in a while, Ariadne would turn back to Anna and look at her knowingly, her mouth twisting in a smile like a bow.
And each time this happened, Anna would wonder again what was happening and why that particular look made the room spin. Maybe she was ill. Maybe she had developed a fever from looking at Ariadne. The pudding came and went, and Anna vaguely remembered eating it. As the dishes were cleared and the women stood to leave the table, Ariadne came and hooked her arm through Anna's. "We have quite a good library," she said to Anna. "Perhaps I could show it to you." Anna, with a show of supreme self-control, did not immediately fall to the floor. She managed to say, "Yes, the library. Yes, she would love to see it. Yes, library. Yes, yes." She told herself to stop saying she wanted to see the library, and looked over at her mother. Cecily smiled. "Go on, Anna. Christopher, would you mind accompanying us to the greenhouse? Mrs. Bridgestock has a collection of poisonous plants that I think you will quite enjoy." Anna cast Cecily a grateful look as Ariadne led her from the room. Her head was full of Ariadne's orange blossom perfume, and the way her tumble of dark hair was pinned up in a gold comb. "It's this way," Ariadne said, leading Anna to a set of double doors toward the back of the house. The library was dark and had a chill. Ariadne released Anna's arm and illuminated one of the electric lights. "You use electricity?" Anna said. She had to say something, and that was as good a thing as any. "I convinced Father," Ariadne said. "I am modern and possessed of all sorts of advanced notions." The room was full of crates, and only some of the books had been unpacked and shelved. The furniture, however, had been placed. There was an ample desk and many comfortable reading chairs. "We're still settling in here," Ariadne said, sitting herself prettily, she had no other way, on a deep red chair. Anna was too nervous to sit and paced along the opposite side of the room. It was almost too much to look at Ariadne here in this dark, private place. "I understand your family has a very interesting history," Ariadne said. Anna had to speak. She had to figure out a way to be around Ariadne. In her mind, she donned her real clothing: the trousers, the shirt, the mental one had no stains, the fitted waistcoat. She slipped her arms through the sleeves. Thus attired, she felt confident. She managed to sit opposite Ariadne and meet her gaze. "My grandfather was a worm, if that's what you mean," Anna said. Ariadne laughed aloud. "You didn't like him?" "I didn't know him," Anna said. "He was, quite literally, a worm." Clearly, Ariadne didn't know that much about the Lightwoods. Usually, when one's demon-loving relative develops a serious case of demon pox and turns into a giant worm with massive teeth, word gets around. People will talk. "Yes," Anna said, now examining the gilded edge of a writing desk. "You are funny," Ariadne said to Anna. "I'm glad you think so," Anna replied. "Your brother's eyes are quite extraordinary," Ariadne noted. Anna heard this a good deal. Christopher's eyes were lavender in color. "Yes," Anna said, "he's the good-looking one in the family."
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. "I quite disagree," Ariadne exclaimed, looking surprised. "Gentlemen must compliment you all the time on the shade of your eyes." She blushed and looked down, and Anna's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't possible, she told herself. There was simply no chance that the Inquisitor's beautiful daughter was like her, that she would look at another girl's eyes and note their color as lovely, instead of simply asking her what fabrics she wore to bring out their shade best. "I am afraid I am quite behind on my training," Ariadne said. "Perhaps we could train together?" "Yes," Anna said, maybe too quickly. "Yes, of course. If you may find me clumsy." Ariadne twisted her hands together. "I'm sure I won't," Anna said. "But that is the point of training, in any case. It is a delicate thing, training, despite the obvious violence, of course." "You will have to be delicate with me, then," Ariadne said, very softly. Just as Anna thought she might faint, the doors opened, and Inquisitor Bridgestock came in, with Cecily, Gabriel, and Christopher in tow. The Lightwoods looked vaguely exhausted. Anna was conscious of her mother's eyes on her, a sharp and thoughtful look. "And we have our map collection. Ah, Ariadne. Still in here, of course. Ariadne is a fiendish reader, absolutely fiendish." Ariadne smiled. "Anna and I were just discussing my training. I thought it would be sensible to partner with another girl." "Very sensible," Bridgestock said. "Yes, a very good idea. You shall be partners. Anyway, Lightwood, well, look at the maps at some point. Now, Ariadne, come into the parlor. I'd like you to play the piano for our guests." Ariadne looked up at Anna. "Partners," she said. "Partners," Anna replied. It was only on the way home that Anna realized that Ariadne had asked her to the library and not shown her a single book. "Did you like young Ariadne Bridgestock?" said Cecily, as the Lightwood's carriage rumbled home through the dark streets of the city. "I thought her very amiable," said Anna, looking out the window at London sparkling in the vast night. She longed to be out there among the earthbound stars, walking in the streets of Soho, living a life of music and adventure and dancing. "Very pretty, too." Cecily tucked a stray lock of hair back behind her daughter's ear. In surprise, Anna looked at her mother for a moment. There was a little sadness in Cecily's eyes, though she couldn't have guessed why. Perhaps she was simply tired after being bored by the Inquisitor all night. Papa, for instance, was quite asleep in the other corner of the carriage, and Christopher was leaning against him, blinking drowsily. "She isn't nearly as pretty as you, Mother," Anna said in exasperation, and turned back to the carriage window. Under the arches of the railway viaduct, near the south end of London Bridge, a large gathering was taking place. It was midsummer, so the sun set over London at nearly 10 o'clock. This meant the time to sell at the Shadow Market was reduced, and the whole place had a bit of a frenzied air. There was steam and smoke and flapping silks. Hands reached out, shoving wares under shoppers' noses, gems and trinkets, books, pendants, powders, oils, games, and toys for downworlder children, and items that could not be classified. There was a hum of smells. The tang of the river and the smoke from the trains overhead mixed the remains of the day's produce from the mundane markets, squashed produce, bits of meat, the odor wafting from oyster barrels. Vendors burned incense, which tangled with spices and perfumes. The miasma could be overpowering. Brother Zachariah moved through the crush of stalls, immune to the smells and the crowding. Many downworlders drew back at the approach of the silent brother. He had been coming here for weeks now to meet Ragnar Fell. Tonight, he also glanced around to see if he spotted the vendor he had seen on one of his previous visits. The stall he was looking for could move on its own. It had feet like a chicken. The woman behind it was an elderly fairy woman with a wild mass of hair. She sold colorful potions, and Matthew Fairchild had purchased one and given it to his mother. It had taken all of Jem's efforts to bring Charlotte back from death's door. She had not been the same since, nor had Matthew. The stall was not present tonight, nor, it seemed, was Ragnar. He was about to take a final turn around the market before departing when he saw someone he knew bent over a stall of books. The man had a shock of white hair and striking purple eyes. It was Malcolm Fade. "Is that you, James Carstairs?" he said. "How are you, my friend?" Malcolm simply smiled. There was always something a little sad about Malcolm. Jem had heard gossip about a tragic love affair with a Shadowhunter who had chosen to be an Iron Sister rather than be with the one she loved. Jem knew that for some, the law was more important than love. Even as he was now, he could not understand it. He would have given anything to be with the one he loved. Anything, except that which was more sacred than Jem's own life, Tessa's life, or Will's. "How goes your quest?" said Malcolm. "Has Ragnar turned up any information for you about a certain demon you've been seeking?" Jem gave Malcolm a quelling look.
He preferred that not too many people knew of the quest he had undertaken. "Malcolm, I have the book you wanted." A warlock woman carrying a book bound in yellow velvet strode up to Malcolm. "Thank you, Leopolda," said Malcolm. The woman stared at Jem's face. Jem was used to this. Though he was a silent brother, his lips and eyes had not been sewn shut. He did not see or speak as humans did, but the fact that, without runes, he could have done so, seemed to distress some people more than the sight of a silent brother who had bound himself less reluctantly to the quiet dark. "We have not met." "No," the woman replied, "we have not. My name is Leopolda Stain. I make a visit here from Vienna." She had a German accent and a soft, purring voice. "This is Brother Zachariah," Malcolm said. She nodded. There was no hand extended, but she continued to stare. "You must forgive me," she said. "We do not often see silent brothers in our market. London is a strange place to me. The market in Vienna is not so bustling. It is in the Wienerwald, under the trees. Here you are under this railway. It is quite a different experience." "Zachariah is not quite like other silent brothers," said Malcolm. Leopolda seemed to conclude the study she was making of Jem's face, and smiled. "I must bid you a good night," she said. "It is good to see you, Malcolm. It has been too long, mein Liebling, too long. And it has been most interesting to meet you, James Carstairs. Auf Wiedersehen." She slipped away through the crowd. Jem watched her go. She had decided to call him James Carstairs, not Brother Zachariah, and the choice seemed deliberate. There were certainly many denizens of Downworld who knew his Shadowhunter name. It was no secret. But suddenly Jem felt like a butterfly under a pin, caught in the gaze of the lepidopterist. "Can you tell me about her?" he asked Malcolm, who had returned to examining the book in his hand. "Leopolda is a bit of an odd one," Malcolm said. "I met her while I was traveling in Vienna. I don't think she leaves her city often. She seems to get around with some famous mundanes. She is—" he hesitated. "Yes, more connected, I suppose, to her demon side than her human side, than most of us are. More than me, certainly. She makes me feel uneasy. I'm glad that you came over. I was looking for a way to politely escape." Jem looked in the direction that Leopolda had gone. Someone more connected to the demon side. That was someone he might need to speak with, or watch. Anna lay in her bed, eyes closed, trying to will herself to slumber. In her mind she was dancing again. She wore her imaginary finest evening wear, a suit of deep gray, a waistcoat of sunny yellow with matching gloves. On her arm was Ariadne, as she had been tonight, in the blue dress. Sleep was not coming.
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. She pushed herself out of bed and went to the window. The night was warm and close. She had to do something with herself. Her brother's clothes were still in her wardrobe. She picked them out and smoothed them on the bed. She had planned on returning them, but who would miss them? Not Christopher. Their laundress might, but no one would question that Christopher might simply lose his trousers, possibly in the middle of a crowded dance floor. And the older clothes, he wouldn't need them, not at the rate he was growing. The trousers were too long, but they could be hemmed. The shirt could be nipped in at the back. A few simple stitches were all it would take. Anna was not a natural seamstress, but like all Shadowhunters, she possessed the basic skills to repair gear. She couldn't have made lace or done precise tailoring, but she could get this job done. She tacked his shirt and waistcoat in the back to make them fit and flatter her torso. The jacket was a bit more complex, requiring tucks on the back and the side. The shoulders were a bit wrong, and the effect a bit triangular, but all in all, it was a passable effort. She practiced her walk in the fitted trousers, now that they no longer scraped the ground. She had always loved gear as a child, its easy maneuverability, the way it allowed her to move unfettered. She had always been surprised that other girls, unlike her, didn't resent being pressed back into dresses and skirts when training was over, that they didn't resent the loss of freedom. But it was more than the comfort of the clothes. In silks and ruffles, Anna felt silly, as if she were pretending to be someone she was not. When she wore dresses out on the street, she was ignored as a gawky girl, or stared at by men in a way she did not like. She had only been out in her brother's clothes twice, both times late at night, but oh, women looked at her then. Smiling women, conspiratorial women, women who knew that in donning the clothes of men, Anna walked in their power and their privilege. They looked at her soft lips, her long eyelashes, her blue eyes. They looked at her hips in tight trousers, the curve of her breasts under a man's cotton shirt. And their eyes spoke to her in the secret language of women, acknowledging her power and the freedom she embodied. In her mind's eye, Anna bent to take Ariadne's hand in hers, and the hand seemed real. "You are so beautiful tonight," she said to Ariadne. "You are the most beautiful girl I have ever seen." "And you," Ariadne answered in her mind, "are the most handsome person I have ever known." The next day, Anna spent 2 hours writing a note to Ariadne that ended up reading, "Dear Ariadne, it was very nice to meet you. I hope we can train together sometime. Please do pay a call. Regards, Anna Lightwood." 2 entire hours for that, and a pile of drafts. Time no longer had meaning, and might never have meaning again. In the afternoon, she had plans to meet her cousins, James, Lucy, and Thomas, along with Matthew Fairchild. James, Matthew, Thomas, and Christopher were inseparable and always meeting at a house or a hideout. They were invading her Aunt Sophie and Uncle Gideon's home today. Anna only attended their little gatherings on occasion, as did Lucy. The girls had many occupations to amuse themselves with. Today, she desperately needed something to do, something to moor her mind in place, to keep her from fighting and pacing her room. She walked with Christopher, who was excitedly talking of some kind of device that would fly through the air by means of 4 rotating blades. It sounded like he was describing a mechanical insect. Anna made noises that indicated she was listening, although she was most assuredly not. It was not far to their cousin's house. Her cousins Barbara and Eugenia were in the morning room. Barbara was stretched out on a sofa, while Eugenia was furiously working at a bit of needlepoint as if she truly hated it, and the only way she could express her hatred was by stabbing the stretched cloth with the needle as vigorously as she could. Anna and Christopher went up to the rooms that had been set aside for the use of Sophie and Gideon's children. James was there, sitting on his window seat, reading. Lucy was sitting at the desk, scribbling away. Tom was throwing a knife at the opposite wall. Christopher greeted everyone and immediately sat down in the corner with a book. Anna dropped down next to Lucy. "How's Cordelia?" she asked. "Oh, she's wonderful. I was just writing to her quickly before Thomas helps me go over my Persian lesson." Lucy was always writing to her future parabatai, Cordelia Carstairs. Lucy was always writing. Lucy could write in a room full of people talking, screaming, singing. Anna was sure that Lucy could probably write in the middle of battle. Anna approved of this highly. It was very good to see 2 girls so devoted to each other, even platonically. Women should value other women, even if society often did not. Ariadne came into her mind again. "What's wrong, Anna?" James said. He was looking at her curiously. Anna loved all of her cousins, but she had a very soft spot for James. He had been a somewhat awkward young boy, gentle and quiet and bookish. He had grown up into a young man Anna could see was extraordinarily handsome, like his father. He had a soft fall of the Herondale black hair. From his mother he had inherited his demonic trait, his inhuman golden eyes.
Anna had always thought they were rather pretty, though Christopher had told her that James had been teased relentlessly at the academy because of them. It was the teasing that prompted Matthew to get the explosives and Christopher to arrange for a wing of the building to blow up. It was honorable to defend your friends, your parabatai. Anna was proud of them for doing it. She would have done the same. James had been such a shy, delightful little boy. It made Anna furious to think that he had been mocked. He was older now, given a bit more to brooding and staring into the distance, but still kind under it all. "Nothing," she said. "I just need a new book to read." "A most sensible request," James said, swinging his long legs off his reading perch. "What sort of book?" "Fortunately, Aunt Sophie and Uncle Gideon have a respectable collection. Adventure, history, romance, poetry." All the younger set were fearfully bookish. Anna put it down to Uncle Will and Aunt Tessa's influence. They seldom let one leave the Institute without a book they felt one simply must read. Now that they were talking about this, perhaps this would be useful in talking to Ariadne. She was a fiendish reader after all. "I'm training with someone new," Anna said. "Her name is Ariadne. She does quite a lot of reading, so—" "Ah, Ariadne. That's a name from mythology. We could start you on a course of that. Would you like to begin with The Golden Bough by Fraser? There's a new edition of 3 volumes. Unless you want to start with the basics, there's always Lempriere's Bibliotheca Classica." James flipped gracefully through the books on the wall. He was an accomplished fighter and excellent dancer. Perhaps it was these traits, combined with the fact that he was growing into his looks, that explained why he seemed to suddenly be so popular with girls. He couldn't walk through a room of them without them sighing and giggling. Anna supposed she was pleased for him, or would be if he ever noticed it was happening. He had soon plucked a dozen books from the shelf, passing one to Christopher almost as an afterthought. A silver bracelet flashed upon his wrist. A love gift, Anna wondered. Perhaps one of the sighing gigglers had attracted his interest after all. Anna supposed she ought to be more charitable toward them. She felt herself on the verge of sighing and giggling over Ariadne at any moment. The door flew open, and Matthew Fairchild entered the room and draped himself dramatically over the back of a chair. "Good afternoon, you wonderful bunch of villains."
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. "James, why are you clearing the shelves?" "Anna asked me for something to read," James said, surveying a table of contents with a furious eye. He set the book aside. "Anna? Reading? What dark magic is this?" "I am hardly an illiterate," Anna said, throwing an apple at him. He caught it easily and smiled. Matthew was normally very fastidious. He and Anna often spoke of gentlemen's fashion together. But today Anna noticed that his hair was a bit wild, and one of the buttons on his waistcoat was undone. These were small things, to be sure, but on Matthew they spoke of something larger. "What is your interest?" Matthew asked. "Is it a crime to want to become more literate?" "Not all," Matthew said. "I love literature. In fact, I've found a marvelous place. It's a salon full of writers and poets. But it is a bit disreputable." Anna cocked her head in interest. "Here we go," James said, bringing over a pile of a dozen or so books and setting it down with a heavy thump. "Do any of these appeal? Have a look and see. Of course, I can recommend others. Wait, no, not these, not these." He scooped the books away and returned to the shelves. James was clearly absorbed in his task. Christopher was happily reading his book, which had a horribly scientific title. Lucy and Thomas were at the desk, Thomas helping Lucy go over some phrases. Lucy was learning for Cordelia, and Tom liked languages, since he spoke Spanish with Uncle Gideon and Welsh with his cousins. Angel bless their sweet, studious souls, none of them seemed likely to hear Anna and Matthew hatching a dark plot. Nevertheless, Matthew pitched his voice very low. "Why don't I come and get you at midnight?" Matthew said. "We can go together. I could use a companion who knows how to have a bit of fun. You might need a disguise, though. No reputable young lady walks the streets of London at midnight." "Oh," Anna said, "I think I can manage something." Just before midnight, as promised, Anna heard a tapping at her bedroom window. Matthew Fairchild was there, dancing along the edge. My, he said approvingly. "Are those Christopher's?" Anna had dressed herself in her brother's clothes. The sewing had helped a good deal. "A disguise," she said simply. He laughed, spinning carelessly on the sill. He could see he had been drinking. His reflexes were slow, and he only caught himself a half-second before tumbling back out to the ground. "They suit you better than they suit him, but still, we need to get you something nicer than that. Here." He pulled the ascot from his neck and handed it to her. "I insist," he said. "I could never let a lady go out in inferior menswear." Anna felt herself exhaling slowly and smiling as she put on the tie. The two of them jumped from her window, landing noiselessly on the courtyard in front of the house. "Where is this place?" Anna said. "A nefarious corner of Soho," he said with a smile. "Soho!" Anna was delighted. "How did you find out about it?" "Oh, just through my wanderings." "You do a lot of those." "I have a periphrastic soul." Matthew was more drunk than he had first appeared. He rolled back on his heels and spun around the occasional lamppost as they walked. He had been like this a lot in recent weeks. What was fun and light about Matthew had taken on an edge. On some level, she felt a bit of worry rising. But this was Matthew, and he did not do well under confinement. Perhaps the summer night had just gotten his spirits particularly high. The house Matthew took Anna to was deep in the warren of Soho, off of Brewer Street. It was painted black with a green door. "You'll like it here," Matthew said, smiling at Anna. The door was opened by a tall, pale man in a maroon frock coat. "Fairchild," he said, looking at Matthew. "And?" "Fairchild's good friend," Matthew replied. Anna could feel the intelligence of the vampire's gaze as he took her in for a long time. He seemed intrigued, both by her and by Matthew, though his expression was unreadable. At last he stepped aside and allowed them in. "You see," Matthew said, "no one can resist our company." The hall was utterly dark. The fanlight had been covered in a velvet drape. The only light came from candles. The house was decorated in a style that Anna thoroughly approved of. Heavy green paper run through with gold, velvet curtains and furniture. It smelled of cigars and strange, tiny rose-colored cigarettes and gin. The room was crowded with a mix of downworlders and mundanes, all elaborately dressed. Anna noticed many people taking in the sight of her in her men's clothing and nodding appreciatively. The men seemed pleased or amused, the women either admiring or interested. Quite a few regarded Anna with interest, appreciating her appearance in her fitted clothes. It was as if in casting off dresses she had cast off society's expectation of a woman's modesty and could allow herself to be noticed and appreciated. Her soul soared with new confidence. She felt herself a gorgeous creature, neither a gentleman nor a lady. A gentlewoman, she thought, and winked at one of the only people she recognized, the werewolf Wolsey Scott, head of the Praetor Lupus. He wore a bottle-green smoking jacket and was puffing away on a hookah pipe while holding court for a cluster of fascinated mundanes. "Of course," Anna heard him say, "they had a difficult time getting my bathtub into one of the tree houses, but I would hardly leave it behind. One must always bring one's own bathtub." "That's somebody Yates over there," Matthew said, indicating a tall, bespectacled man. "He read a new work the last time I was here." "And it was wonderful," said a voice. It came from a woman sitting near where Matthew and Anna stood. She was a stunning warlock with the scaled skin of a snake, colored silver, almost opalescent. Her long green hair tumbled over her shoulders and was strung through with a fine gold mesh. She wore a red gown that clung to her frame. She tipped her head up elegantly toward Matthew and Anna. "Are all London shadow hunters so handsome as you?" she asked. She had a German accent.
"No," Anna said simply. "Definitely not," Matthew agreed. The warlock smiled. "Your London Shadowhunters are more interesting than ours. Ours are very tedious. Yours are beautiful and amusing." Someone grumbled something at this, but the rest of the group laughed appreciatively. "Do sit and join us," the woman said. "I am Leopolda Stain." Most of the people around Leopolda seemed to be fawning mundanes, like the group around Wolsey Scott. One man wore a black robe covered in symbols Anna did not recognize. Matthew and Anna sat down on the rug, against a pile of tasseled pillows that served as a sofa. Next to them was a woman wearing a gold turban scarf pinned with a sapphire. "Are you two of the Chosen?" she asked Matthew and Anna. "Certainly," Matthew said. "Ah, I could tell from the way Leopolda reacted to you. She is quite wonderful, is she not? She is from Vienna and knows simply everyone. Freud, Mahler, Klimt, Schiele. Marvelous," Matthew said. He probably did think it was marvelous. Matthew adored art and artists. "She's going to help us," the woman said. "Obviously, we've had such troubles here. Why, Crowley wasn't even recognized here in London. He had to go to the Achathor Temple in Paris to be initiated to the grade of Adeptus Minor, which I'm sure you heard about." "The moment it happened," Matthew lied. Anna bit her lip and looked down to keep herself from laughing. It was always amusing to meet mundanes who had fantastical notions of how magic worked. Leopolda, she noticed, was smiling indulgently at the entire group, like they were adorable but somewhat dim-witted children. "Well," the woman continued, "I was an adept of the Isis Urania Temple, and I can assure you that This was interrupted by a man standing in the middle of the room and raising a glass of something green. "My friends," he said, "I demand that we remember Oscar."
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. "You must raise your glasses." There was a general noise of agreement, and glasses were raised. The man began to recite Oscar Wilde's The Ballad of Reading Gaol. Anna was struck by one of the stanzas. "Some love too little, some too long. Some sell and others buy. Some do the deed with many tears, and some without a sigh. For each man kills the thing he loves, yet each man does not die." She didn't quite know what it meant, but the spirit of it haunted her. It seemed to have an even more pointed effect on Matthew, who slumped down. "It is a rotten world that would allow a man like Wilde to die," Matthew said. There was a hardness in his voice that was new and a bit alarming. "You're sounding a bit dire," Anna said. "It's true," he replied. "Our greatest poet, and he died in poverty and obscurity, not so long ago. They threw him in jail because he loved another man. I do not think love can be wrong." "No," Anna said. She had always known that she loved women the way she was expected to love men, that she found women beautiful and desirable, while men were good friends, brothers in arms, but nothing more. She had never pretended otherwise, and her close friends all seemed to accept this about her as a known fact. But it was true that though Matthew and the others often joked with her about slaying the hearts of pretty girls, it was not something she and her mother had ever talked about. She recalled her mother touching her hair fondly in the carriage. What did Cecily truly think of her odd daughter? Not now, she told herself. She turned to the woman in the turban, who had been trying to get her attention. "Yes?" "My dear," the woman said, "you must be sure to be here in a week's time. The faithful will be rewarded, I promise you. The ancient ones, so long hidden from us, shall be revealed." "Of course," Anna said, blinking. "Yes, wouldn't miss it for the world." While she was simply making conversation, Anna found that she would like to return to this place. She had come here dressed as she was, and she had received only approbation. In fact, she was sure that one of the vampire girls was examining her with a look that was not entirely wholesome. And Leopolda, the beautiful warlock, had not taken her eyes from Anna. Had Anna's mind and soul not been full of Ariadne, well, it could only be left to the imagination. As Matthew and Anna left the house that night, they did not notice a figure across the street, standing in the shadows. Jem recognized Matthew at once, but was confused at first as to who was with him. The person resembled his parabatai, Will Herondale, not Will as he was now, but Will at 17, with his confident swagger and upturned chin. But that could not be. And the person was obviously not James, Will's son. It took him several minutes to realize that the young man was not a young man at all. It was Anna Lightwood, Will's niece. She had inherited the dark hair and the profile from the Herondale side of her family, and clearly she had inherited her uncle's swagger. For a moment, Jem felt a pang in his heart. It was like seeing his friend as a young man again, as the two of them had been when they lived at the Institute together and fought side by side, as they had been when Tessa Gray first arrived at their door. Was it really so long ago? Jem shook the thought loose and focused on the present. Anna was in some sort of disguise, and she and Matthew had just been at a downworlder gathering with a warlock he had come to observe. He had no idea what they were doing there. A full week passed. A full week of Anna running for the post, looking from the window, walking part way to Cavendish Square before turning back. A lifetime. It was agony, and just as it was turning to acceptance, Anna was called downstairs early Friday morning to find Ariadne waiting for her in a yellow dress and a white hat. "Good morning," Ariadne said. "Why aren't you ready?" "Ready?" Anna said, her throat gone dry at the sudden appearance of Ariadne. "To train. Good morning, Ariadne," Cecily Lightwood said, coming in with Alexander. "Oh!" Ariadne's eyes lit up when she saw the baby. "Oh, I must hold him. I simply adore babies." The appearance of Alexander bought Anna enough time to scramble upstairs, catch her breath, splash water on her face, and collect her gear. 5 minutes later, Anna was seated next to Ariadne in the Bridgestock carriage, rumbling toward the Institute. They were alone now, close to each other in the warm carriage. The smell of Ariadne's orange blossom perfume wafted up and wrapped around Anna. "Did I disturb you?" Ariadne said. "I had simply hoped that you might be free to train with me." She looked worried. "I hope I did not presume. Are you angry?" "No," Anna replied. "I could never be angry with you." Anna tried to make it sound light, but a husky note of truth rang through. "Good." Ariadne looked radiantly pleased at that and crossed her hands on her lap. "I would hate to displease you." When they arrived at the Institute, Anna changed much more quickly than Ariadne. She waited in the training room, nervously pacing, taking knives from the walls and throwing them to steady her nerves. Just training, simple training. "You have a good arm," Ariadne said. Ariadne was stunning in her dresses. The gear revealed something else. She was still feminine with her long hair and lush curves, but unencumbered by pounds of fabric, she moved with grace and speed. "How would you like to begin?" Anna said. "Do you have a preferred weapon? Or should we do some climbing? Work on the beam?" "Whatever you think is best," Ariadne replied. "Shall we start with blades?" Anna said, taking one from the wall. Whatever Ariadne had been doing in Idris, it did not involve much training. She had been accurate in that. When she threw, her arm was weak. Anna came up and guided her, forcing herself to maintain her composure as she took Ariadne's hand in hers and guided the toss. She was surprisingly good at climbing, but once on the ceiling beam, she took a bad tumble. Anna jumped underneath and caught her neatly. "Oh, very impressive," Ariadne said, smiling. Anna stood there for a moment, Ariadne in her arms, unsure of what to do. There was something in Ariadne's gaze, in the way she was looking at her, as if mesmerized. How, did she ask? How did this happen with someone like Ariadne? It was too much. "A very good attempt," Anna said, gently setting Ariadne on her feet. "Just watch your footing."
I think I've had enough of that for today, Ariadne said. How does one have fun in London? Oh, so many ways. Well, Anna said, there is the theatre and the zoo is... No. Ariadne took hold of one of the pillars and gently spun around it. Fun! Surely you know a place. Well, Anna said, searching her mind frantically, I know a place full of writers and poets. It is quite louche. It is in Soho and starts after midnight. Then I assume you will be taking me, Ariadne said, eyes sparkling. I will wait for you by my window at midnight tonight. The wait that evening was excruciating. Anna picked at her dinner and watched the clock across the room. Christopher was forming his carrots into a pyramid and working something out in his head. Her mother was feeding Alexander. Anna was counting her heartbeats. She had to try not to appear conspicuous. She spent some time in the family room with her baby brother. She picked up a book and cast an eye blankly over the pages. By 9, she was able to stretch and say she was going to have a bath and retire. Back in her room, Anna waited until she heard the other members of the household go to bed before changing her clothes. She had taken the time to clean her outfit and mend it as best she could. When she dressed, she looked dapper and dangerous. She had decided now that this was how she would dress if she slipped out on adventures, even to meet Ariadne. She slipped out of her window at 11, sliding down a rope which she tossed back inside.
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. She could have jumped, but it had taken her some time to arrange her hair under the hat correctly. She walked to Belgravia, and this time she did not bother to avoid the pools of streetlight. She wanted to be seen. She straightened her back and widened her step. The more she walked, the more she felt herself slipping into the gait, the attitude. She tipped her hat to a lady passing in a carriage. The lady smiled and looked away shyly. Anna knew now that she was never going to go back to wearing dresses. She had always loved the theater, always loved the idea of a performance. The first time she had worn her brother's clothes, it had been a performance. But with each time she did it again, it became more her reality. She was not a man, and did not want to be, but why should men get to keep all the good pieces of masculinity for themselves because of an accident of birth? Why should she, Anna, not wear their clothes, and their power and confidence too? You have stolen fire from the gods. Anna's swagger faded a bit as she turned the corner onto Cavendish Square. Would Adrian accept her like this? It had felt so right a moment before, but now... She almost turned back, but then she turned on her heel and forced herself on. The Bridgestock house was dark. Anna looked up, fearing that Ariadne had been teasing. But then she saw a flick of a curtain, and the sash window opened. Anna looked down at her, and she smiled. A rope sailed out of the window, and Ariadne slid down it, more gracefully than she had in training. She wore a light blue dress, which fluttered as she dropped. "Oh my," she said, walking up to Anna. "You look quite devastating." Anna would not have traded the way Ariadne looked at her in that moment for £1,000. They took a carriage to Soho. Though she and Ariadne were both glamoured to hide their marks from mundanes, Anna enjoyed the look she got from the driver when he realized the handsome young gent in his cab was a handsome young lady. He doffed his cap as she and Ariadne alighted from the cab, muttering something about young people these days. They arrived at the house, but this time, when Anna knocked on the door, the person answering was less accommodating. He looked at Anna, then at Ariadne. "No Shadowhunters," he said. "That was not your previous policy," Anna said. She noticed that the windows were now covered in heavy velvet curtains. "Go home, Shadowhunters," he said. "I have made myself clear." The door was slammed in their faces. "Now I am curious," Ariadne said. "We must go in, don't you think?" Ariadne certainly had a wicked streak in her that complemented her bubbly cheerfulness, a love of things that were just a bit naughty. Anna felt she should encourage this impulse. There was no clear point of access on the flat front of the house, so they moved down to the end of the street and found a narrow alley backing the houses. This was bricked up to the 3rd floor. There was, however, a drain pipe. Anna got a hold on this and made the climb. She could not reach the 3rd-story windows from there, but she could get onto the roof. She looked down to see Ariadne climbing up after her, again showing more skill than she had in the training room. They managed to pry open an attic window. From there they crept down the winding stairs, Anna first, with Ariadne behind. Ariadne kept a hand on Anna's waist, possibly for guidance as they walked, or Anna would not think about it. They were burning a great deal of incense in the house tonight. It hummed through the hall and up the stairs, almost causing Anna to cough. It was not a pleasant smell, it was acrid and hard. Anna detected wormwood, mugwort, and something else, something with a metallic edge, like blood. The group was usually quiet. There was only one voice, speaking low, a female voice with the Germanic accent. She heard the incantations. Anna knew a summoning when she heard one. She turned to Ariadne, who had a look of concern on her face. She reached for her seraph blade and indicated to Ariadne that she would go ahead and look. Ariadne nodded. Anna crept to the end of the steps, then down the hall. She pushed back a bit of the velvet curtain that closed off the main sitting room. Everyone there was turned toward the center of the room, so mostly she saw backs and the faint flicker of candlelight. Anna could make out the form of a circle drawn on the floor. The woman in the turban was just on the edge of it, her face tilted up in ecstasy. She wore a long black robe and held a book with a pentagram over her head. The book was bound in something odd. It looked like skin. Towering above all was the warlock Leopolda, her eyes closed and her arms raised. She held a curved dagger in her hands. She was chanting in a demonic language. Then she looked to the woman in the turban and nodded. The woman took a long step into the circle. Green flame flashed all around, making the mundanes murmur and back away. There were not, Anna noticed, many downworlders present. "Come forth," cried the woman. "Come forth, beautiful death. Come forth, creature, that we may worship you. Come forth." There was a terrible smell, and the room filled with darkness. Anna knew she could no longer stand still. "Get out!" Anna yelled, pushing her way into the room. "All of you!" The group had no time to be surprised. A massive ravener demon burst forth out of the darkness. The woman in the turban went down on her knees before it. "My lord," she said, "my dark." The ravener whipped its tail around and easily severed the woman's turbaned head from her neck. The assembled let up a collective scream, and there was a rush for the door. Anna had to fight her way toward the demon. The ravener was making short work of the woman's remains. Leopolda Stain simply looked on the scene with gentle amusement. It was hard to fight a demon in such close quarters without killing all the people as well. Anna shoved several mundanes aside and launched herself at the demon, her seraph blade raised. It made an angry screeching noise. This was because something had just struck out one of its eyes. Ariadne was next to her, holding an electrum whip and smiling. "Very good aim," Anna said, as the angry demon wheeled around. It made a leap and broke through one of the front windows. Anna and Ariadne went right after it, Anna making the jump easily in her new clothes. Ariadne went through the door, but she was fast on her feet, snapping her whip in the air. Between them they quickly made short work of the beast. There was a strange crackling noise. They turned to see that the demon had not come alone. A cluster of smaller raveners poured through the broken window, their jaws dripping green liquid. Anna and Ariadne turned to face them, weapons drawn. A small ravener jumped forward first. Ariadne sliced through it with her whip.
Another sprang out, but as soon as it appeared, a staff swung through the air next to Anna, bashing its head in. She turned as it disappeared, to find herself looking at Brother Zachariah. She was well acquainted with her uncle's former parabatai, though she had no idea what he was doing here. "How many?" he asked. "I don't know," she said, as another demon came forth from the house. "They're coming from a circle inside the house. There are people hurt." He nodded and indicated that he would proceed inside, while Anna and Ariadne fought outside. One of the creatures was about to descend on one of the fleeing mundanes. Anna jumped on its back, dodging its angrily swinging tail, and plunged her seraph blade into the back of its neck. The stunned mundane crab-crawled backwards, as the ravener fell dead to the ground. She turned to look for Ariadne, who was making short work of one of the raveners, slicing her electrum whip through the air and then right through the demon's legs. Anna was surprised. The only other electrum whip she had ever seen was owned by the consul, Charles Fairchild.
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. Ariadne and Anna stood back to back, fighting like parabatai might, their movements in sync, though they were certainly not parabatai. It would be very wrong to feel about a parabatai the way Anna felt about Ariadne. There was no mistaking it, Anna thought, though it was an awkward revelation to have in the middle of a demon fight. She was definitely in love with Ariadne Bridgestock. Jem entered the house through the open door, his staff at the ready. The room seemed empty, quiet. There was a tremendous amount of blood on the floor, and the torn remains of a human. "Herein," said a voice. "I was hoping you would come." Jem turned. Leopolda Stain was sitting in the anteroom on a large brocade chair, holding the head of a woman in her lap. Jem raised his staff. "You have murdered innocent mundanes," Jem said. "They slew themselves," Leopolda said. "They were playing with fire. They were burned. You know of such creatures? They believe they understand magic. They must come to understand its true nature. I do them a service. They will not call another demon. If I wanted to teach them a lesson, where's the harm? There is hellfire in me, but I do not think I am your chief concern." Jem was torn. His instinct was to strike her down for what she had done, and yet— "You hesitate, James Carstairs," she said with a smile. "My name is Brother Zachariah. You were James Carstairs, the Shadowhunter who was addicted to yin-fen. You were acquainted with Axel Mortmain, the one they called the Magister, I think?" At the sound of Mortmain's name, Jem lowered his staff. "Ah," Leopolda said with a smile, "you remember dear Axel? You knew him?" "Quite well," she said. "I know many things. I know a warlock helps run the institute here, yes? Named Tessa Herondale? She is a Shadowhunter, and she can bear no marks. She is married to your parabatai. Why would you be asking me about Tessa?" Jem said. It was as if cold fingers were touching his spine. He did not like this warlock. He did not like her interest in Tessa and Will. "Because you have been in the shadow market, asking many questions about her father, her demonic father." She let the head roll from her lap. "As I said, I knew Mortmain," she said. "Since you have been asking about him and how Tessa was created, news has trickled back to me, one of his only remaining friends. I believe you are curious about how Mortmain created Tessa. You seek the demon he summoned to be her father. If you put your weapon away, perhaps we can have a conversation." Jem did not set down his staff. She might not have been too curious about her demon father before. Leopolda played with the gold netting in her hair, but now that she has children, and those children show signs of their demon heritage, I imagine things are very different." Jem stood coldly stricken. It was as if she had reached into his mind and touched his memory. Standing on Blackfriars Bridge with Tessa on a cold January 2 years ago. The fear on her face. "I do not want to trouble Will, but I worry so over Jamie and Lucy. James despairs of his eyes, calls them doorways into hell, as if he hates his own face, his own bloodline. If I but knew who my demon father was, perhaps I could know, prepare them and myself, and Will." Jem had feared even then that it was a dangerous errand, that knowledge would gift them only further worries and doubts. But it was something Tessa had wanted for Will and the children, and he loved them all too much to say no. "Your friend Ragnar's queries have finally borne fruit," said Leopolda. "I know who Tessa's father was." She narrowed her eyes. "In exchange, I only need something small, just the smallest amount of blood from a living Shadowhunter. You will not even feel it. I was going to get it from the girl, the one who dresses as a boy. I like her very much. I would like to collect her, if I could." "You will stay away from her." "Of course I will," Leopolda said. "I will help you as well. Just the smallest amount of blood, and I can tell you of Tessa Herondale's true father." "Brother Zachariah!" he heard Anna yell. Jem turned for one moment, and Leopolda moved toward him. He flung up his staff, knocking her backward. She let out a hiss and darted away faster than seemed possible. She lifted her curved blade. "Do not toy with me, James Carstairs. Do you not want to know of your Tessa?" There was another cry from outside. Jem had no choice. He ran in the direction of Anna's voice. Outside, Anna and another girl were in a fierce fight with at least 6 raveners. They were pressed to the wall, fighting back to back. Jem swung out with his staff and brought it down on the back of the closest one. He continued swinging until Anna and the girl were able to regain some ground. Jem took down another, while Anna made short work of 2 at once with a long swing of her blade. There was but one ravener left. It extended its spiked tail and pointed it at the other girl's chest. In a second, Anna was diving through the air, knocking the other girl out of the way. They rolled together, Anna's arms around the girl, shielding her. Jem struck out at this last demon, landing a blow on its head. The street fell quiet. Anna was in the girl's arms, very still. "Anna!" Jem raced over. The Shadowhunter girl was already tearing away Anna's sleeve to get to the wound. Anna hissed as the poison stung the surface of her skin. Behind them, Leopolda stepped out of the house and began to simply walk away. "It's fine," Anna said. "Go after her, Ariadne." The other girl, Ariadne, exhaled and sat back. "The poison did not enter your system, but it did get on your skin. We must wash the site with herbs immediately. And your wound is deep. You will need several iratzes." The girl looked up at Jem. "I'll take care of her," she said. "I am well trained in healing. I was taught by silent brothers while I lived in Idris. Anna's right. Go after Stain." "You are sure?" "Anna will need an emissio, a blood replacement rune." "Quite sure," the girl said, easing Anna to her feet. "Believe me when I say Anna would rather lose a bit of blood than have her parents find out what we did tonight." "Hear, hear," agreed Anna. "Take care of her," said Jem. "I will." Ariadne spoke with a firm confidence, and from the way she was handling the wound, her words appeared true. "Come," Ariadne said to Anna. "My house is not far. Can you walk?" "With you," Anna said, "I can go anywhere." Thus assured, Jem turned in the direction of Leopolda Stain. They walked back to Ariadne's house, Anna occasionally leaning on her friend for support.
The poison on her skin was starting to have an effect, which was a bit like having too much wine too fast. She tried to keep herself steady. They were glamoured now, walking unseen through the street. When they arrived, Ariadne let them in quietly through the front door. They took the stairs gently so as not to wake anyone. Luckily, Ariadne's room was on the opposite side of the house from her parents' room. Ariadne led Anna in and shut the door. Ariadne's room was like the person who inhabited it. Perfumed, perfect, delicate. There were lace curtains on the large windows. The walls were papered in silver and rose, and there were fresh-cut lilacs and roses in vases around the room. "Come," Ariadne said, leading Anna to her bureau, where there was a water basin. Ariadne removed Anna's jacket and pushed up her sleeve. Having mixed a few herbs into the basin, she poured the mixture over the wound, which stung. "It is a nasty injury," Ariadne said, "but I am a good nurse." She moistened a cloth and gently cleaned the wound with soft strokes, careful to wipe away any poison that had splashed on Anna's skin. Then she got her stele and drew an amicio rune to speed blood replacement and an iratse to encourage healing. The wound began to close. Throughout all of this, Anna was silent, breathless. She did not feel pain. She felt only Ariadne's careful hands on her. "Thank you," she finally said. Ariadne set her stele down. "It is nothing. You sustained this wound while saving me."
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. You stepped in front of me. You protected me. I would protect you always, Anna said. Ariadne looked at Anna for a long moment. The only light came in through the pattern in the lace. "My dress," Ariadne said softly. "I think it is quite ruined. I look a fright." "Nonsense," Anna replied. Then, after a beat, she added, "You have never looked more beautiful. It has blood on it and ichor. Help me remove it, please." With trembling fingers, Anna undid the many buttons on the front of the dress, and it slid to the ground in a pile. Ariadne turned so that Anna could undo the stays of her corset. Ariadne wore a cotton chemise underneath, trimmed in delicate lace. Her chemise and bloomers were stark white against her brown skin. Her eyes glowed. "You must rest a bit, Anna," Ariadne said. "You cannot leave right now. Come." She took Anna by the hand and led her to the bed. Anna realized as she sank into it how exhausted she was from the fight, and also that she had never been so awake and alive. "Lean back," Ariadne said, stroking Anna's hair. Anna put her head down on the pillow. Her boots were gone. Her hair had come down, and she pushed it back impatiently. "I would like to kiss you," Ariadne said. Her voice shook with a fear Anna understood all too well. Ariadne was afraid Anna was going to push her away, reject her, run screaming. But how could Ariadne not know how she felt? "Please, Anna, may I kiss you?" Unable to speak, Anna nodded. Ariadne leaned forward and pressed her lips to Anna's. Anna had lived this moment in her mind 100 times or more. She did not know her body would grow so warm, that Ariadne would taste so sweet. She returned the kiss, then kissed Ariadne along her cheek, her chin, down her neck. Ariadne made a low sound of delight. She brought her lips up to Anna's again, and they fell back against the pillows. They were tangled together, laughing and warm, intent only on each other. The pain was gone, replaced by rapture. During the day, the streets and alleys of Soho could be hard to navigate. At night, they became a dangerous and confusing warren. Jem kept his staff aloft. At this late hour, the only people about were drunkards and ladies of the night. The alleys smelled of refuse, and there was broken glass and the assorted detritus of a London day. Jem made his way to a storefront on Wardour Street. He knocked, and the door was opened by 2 young werewolves, neither of whom seemed surprised to see him. Wolsey Scott is expecting me." They nodded and guided him through a dark and empty shop that sold buttons and ribbons and through a door. On the other side was a dimly lit but tastefully furnished room. Wolsey Scott was stretched out on a low divan. Sitting opposite him was Leopolda Stane, surrounded by a half a dozen more werewolves. She seemed calm and composed and was even sipping from a cup of tea. "Ah, Carstairs," Scott said. "Finally. I thought we'd be here all night." "Thank you," said Jem, "for looking after her for me." "It was no trouble," said Scott. He tipped his chin at Leopolda. "As you know, this one arrived a few weeks ago. We've been keeping an eye on her ever since. I didn't think she would go as far as she did tonight. Can't have her egging on idiot mundanes to raise demons. It's the sort of thing that inspires anti-downworlder sentiment." Leopolda seemed to take no offense at the way he spoke. Wolsey rose to his feet. "You had said you wanted to speak with her," he said. "Shall I leave the matter with you?" "Yes," Jem said. "Good. I have an appointment with a rather staggering bottle of red. I'm sure she won't cause any further fuss, will you, Leopolda?" "Of course not," Leopolda said. Scott nodded, and the werewolves left the room as one. Leopolda looked up at Jem and smiled. "It is good to see you again," she said. "We were so rudely interrupted earlier. You will tell me what you know of Tessa." Leopolda reached over to a teapot on a low table and refilled her cup. "These terrible beasts," she said, nodding at the door. "They handled me quite roughly. I would like to leave this place now." "You will not be leaving until you tell me what I want to know." "Oh, I will. You're Tessa. And she was yours, wasn't she? I may not be able to see your eyes, but I can see it in your face." Jem stiffened. He was no longer that boy, the young man who had planned a wedding to Tessa, who had loved her as much as his heart could bear. He loved her still, but he survived it by having put that young man away, by putting away his human loves as he had put away the violin. Instruments for another time, another life. Still, there was no joy in being so cruelly reminded. "I imagine her powers are great," Leopolda said, stirring her tea. "I envy her. Axel was so very proud." There was nothing but the sound of the spoon hitting the sides of the china cup. In the depths of his mind, Jem heard the murmuring of the other silent brothers. He ignored it. This was his mission alone. "Tell me of Tessa's father." "The blood," she said. "You will give me the blood first. It is a very small amount." "That will never happen." "No," she said. "You know, I am merely the humble daughter of a Velitus demon, but you're Tessa." She waited to see the effect on Jem. "Yes," she said, "I know all. You will put out your arm. I will take the blood. I will tell you what you so wish to know, and I will leave. We will both be satisfied. I assure you, what I give you is so much more than I ask. It is a bargain of the highest order." "You do not have the advantages you think you have, Leopolda Stane," he said. "I have known you were here since you set foot on these shores. I knew you were a friend of Mortmain's. I know you want this blood to continue his works, and I will never allow that." Her lip curled. "But you are kind," she said. "You are famous for it. You will not hurt me." Jem took his staff, spinning it between his hands, and held it balanced lightly between himself and Leopolda. He knew 100 different ways to kill her with it. He could break her neck. "That was my Shadowhunter self," he said. "I have killed with this staff, though I prefer not to. Either you tell me what I wish to know, or you die. It is your choice." He saw, from the look in her eyes, that she believed him. "Tell me what I want to know, and I will let you go." Leopolda swallowed. "First, swear upon your angel that you will allow me to leave tonight." "I swear upon the angel."
Leopolda smiled a long vulpine smile. "The ritual that created your Tessa was magnificent," she said. "Such glory. I never thought such a thing could be done, mating a Shadowhunter with a demon. Do not delay. Tell me." "Your Tessa's father was a prince, the greatest of Eidolon demons, the most beautiful creature in any hell, for he has 1,000 shapes." A prince of hell? Jem had feared it. No wonder James could turn himself to smoke, and Tessa herself could take any form, even that of an angel. A line of Nephilim whose blood was mixed with demonic royalty? There was no history of such impossible beings. Even now, he could not think of Tessa and her children as new and strange creations with incredible powers. They were simply people he loved beyond measure. "You are saying Tessa's father was a prince of hell?" The Clave could never know. He could not tell them. His heart lurched. Could he tell Tessa? Would it be better for her to know or not? "Indeed a prince," Leopolda said, "brother to Asmodeus and Samael. What an honor to be born of him. Sooner or later, Jem Carstairs, blood will out, and such a beautiful power will blaze through this city." She rose to her feet. "The greatest of Eidolons? I need more than that. What was his name?" She shook her head. "The price for the name is blood, James Carstairs, and if you will not pay it, another will." She brought her hand out from behind her back and flung a handful of powder at Jem. Had his eyes not been protected by magic, it would likely have blinded him. As it was, he staggered back long enough for her to run past him to the door.
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. She reached it in seconds and threw it open. On the other side of it were 2 huge werewolves, flanking Wolsey Scott. As expected, Wolsey said, looking at Leopolda with contempt. "Kill her, boys. Let her be an example to others who would freely spill blood in our city." Leopolda screamed and whirled on Jem, wide-eyed. "You said you would let me leave! You swore!" Jem felt very weary. "I am not the one who is stopping you." She cried out as the werewolves, already half transformed, flung themselves on her. Jem turned away, while the sound of ripping flesh and shrieks tore through the room. The summer dawn came early. Ariadne was sleeping gently, and Anna heard the maid stirring downstairs. She had not slept yet, even after Ariadne had dropped off. Anna did not want to move from this warm spot. She played with the lace edges of the pillow and watched Ariadne's eyelashes flicker as if she were in the depths of a dream. But the sky was turning from black to the soft peach color of sunrise. Soon there would be a maid at the door with a tray. Soon life would intrude. It would only hurt Ariadne if she were found here. It was her duty to leave this place. She kissed Ariadne softly, so as to not wake her. Then she dressed and slipped out the sash window. The dark did not quite obscure her now as she walked through the misty London morning in her men's clothes. A few people turned their heads to get a second look at her, and she was fairly sure that some of those looks were admiring, even if she was mostly missing one of her sleeves and had lost her hat. She decided to take the longer way home, through Hyde Park. The colors were soft in the sunrise, the waters of the Serpentine still. She felt friendship toward the ducks and the pigeons. She smiled at strangers. This was what love was. It was total. It brought her together with everything. Anna barely cared if she made it home before someone would notice her missing. She wanted to feel like this forever. Exactly this. This soft and fragrant and friendly morning, with the feel of Ariadne still on her skin. Her future, so confused before, was clear. She would be with Ariadne forever. They would travel the world, fight side by side. Eventually, she had to walk toward her home, where she climbed up to her window with ease. She removed her brother's clothing and slipped into bed. Within seconds, she dropped into the easy embrace of sleep and felt herself back in Ariadne's arms. She woke just before noon. Someone had brought her a tea tray and left it next to her bed. She drank the now cold tea. She took a cool bath and examined the wound on her arm. The healing runes Ariadne had drawn had done their work. The area was still red and angry, but she could cover it with a shawl. She dressed in her plainest, most severely cut gown, so funny now, to be dressed as a girl, and put a silk shawl over her shoulders, winding it carefully over the damaged arm. She went downstairs. Her mother sat in a sunny corner of the sitting room, little Alexander on her lap. "There you are," her mother said. "Are you ill?" "No," Anna said. "I was foolish. I stayed up quite late reading a book." "Now I know you are ill," her mother said with a smile, which Anna returned. "I need to take a walk in the sunshine. It is such a lovely day. I shall go see Lucy and James, I think, and discuss my book with them." Her mother gave her a curious look, but agreed. Anna did not walk to the Herondale house. She turned instead toward Belgravia, stopping to buy a bunch of violets from an old woman selling them in the street. Her steps were light. The world was perfectly arranged, and all things and beings in it were worthy of love. Anna could have done anything in that moment. Fought off 100 demons at once, lifted a carriage over her head, danced on a wire. She passed along the pavements she had been on only hours before, back to her love. At the house off of Cavendish Square, Anna knocked once, then stood nervously on the step, looking up. Was Ariadne in her room? Would she look down? The door was opened by the Bridgestock's unsmiling servant. "The family is receiving guests at the moment, Miss Lightwood. Perhaps you would like to wait in—" At that moment, the reception-room door opened, and the Inquisitor walked out with a young man who had familiar features and red hair. Charles Fairchild, Matthew's brother. Anna rarely saw Charles. He was always somewhere, usually Idris. He and the Inquisitor were mid-conversation. "Oh," Inquisitor Bridgestock said, seeing Anna. "Miss Lightwood, how fortuitous. Do you know Charles Fairchild?" "Anna," Charles said with a warm smile. "Yes, of course." "Charles will be the interim head of the Paris Institute," the Inquisitor said. "Oh," Anna said. "Congratulations. Matthew didn't tell me." Charles rolled his eyes. "I imagine he thinks of such things as political aspirations as crass and bourgeois. What are you doing here anyway?" "Anna and Ariadne have been training together," the Inquisitor explained. "Ah," Charles said. "Excellent. You must visit us in Paris sometime, Anna." "Oh," Anna said, not knowing what Charles was talking about. "Yes, thank you, I shall." Ariadne stepped out of the morning room. She wore a dress of fresh peony pink, and her hair was coiled on her head. On seeing Anna, her cheeks flushed. Charles Fairchild stepped ahead with Inquisitor Bridgestock, and Ariadne stepped up to her. "I did not expect to see you so soon," she said to Anna in a low voice. "How could I keep away?" Anna replied. Ariadne was wearing her perfume again, and it wafted lightly through the air. Orange blossom was Anna's favorite scent now. "Perhaps we can meet later," Ariadne said. "I will be back again in a year's time," Charles said, concluding whatever conversation he was having with Inquisitor Bridgestock. He returned to them, bowed, took Ariadne's hand and kissed it formally. "I hope to see more of you when I next return," he said. "It should not be more than a year." "Yes," Ariadne replied. "I would like that very much." "Anna," Mrs. Bridgestock said, "we have a parrot. You must see it. Come." Suddenly, Anna found that Mrs. Bridgestock had hooked her by the arm and was gently leading her into one of the other rooms, where there was a large multicolored parrot in a massive gold cage. The bird cawed loudly on their approach. "It is a very nice bird," Anna said, confused, as Mrs. Bridgestock shut the door behind them.
"I do apologize, Anna," she said. "I just needed to give the two of them the chance to properly say their farewells. These things can be so delicate. I am sure you understand." Anna did not understand, but there was a creeping numbness coming over her. "It is our hope that they might wed in a few years' time," Mrs. Bridgestock went on. "Nothing has been settled, but it is such a good match." The parrot screeched, and Mrs. Bridgestock went on talking, but Anna heard only a ringing in her ears. She could still taste Ariadne's kiss on her lips. She saw Ariadne's dark hair spread out on the pillow. Those things had happened just hours before, and yet it was like 100 years had passed, and the world had grown cold and unfamiliar. The door opened again, and a quiet Ariadne joined them. "Has Mother introduced you to Winston?" she said, looking at the parrot. "She dotes on him. Aren't you a nasty beast, Winston?" She said it warmly, and Winston the parrot danced along his rail and extended a foot to Ariadne. "Did you have a fruitful discussion?" her mother asked. "Mother!" Ariadne protested. She was a little pale, but her mother seemed not to notice. "Please, may I speak to Anna?" "Yes, of course," Mrs. Bridgestock said. "You girls have a good chat. I'll have the cook make up some nice strawberry lemonade and some biscuits." When she left, Anna stared blankly at Ariadne. "You are to be married?" she said, her voice gone dry. "You cannot marry him." "Charles is quite a good match," Ariadne said, as if she were discussing the quality of a piece of cloth.
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. Nothing has been settled, but we should reach an agreement soon. But come, Anna, come, sit. Ariadne took Anna's hand and led her over to one of the sofas. "That won't be for at least another year or more," Ariadne said. "You heard Charles. It's a year before I even see him again. All of that time I will spend with you." She drew a small circle on the back of Anna's hand with her finger, a gentle motion that took Anna's breath away. Ariadne was so beautiful, so warm. Anna felt like she was being torn to pieces. "Surely you cannot wish to marry Charles," said Anna. "There is nothing wrong with him, but he is— Do you love him?" "No," Ariadne said, clutching Anna's hand tighter. "I do not love him that way, or any man that way. All my life I have looked at women and known only they could pierce my heart, as you have pierced it, Anna." "Then why," Anna said, "why marry him? Because of your parents?" "Because that is the way the world is," Ariadne said, her voice shaking, the way it had when she had first asked Anna if she might kiss her. "If I were to tell my parents the truth about myself, if I were to reveal who I really am, they would despise me. I would be friendless, cast out, alone." Anna shook her head. "They would not," she said. "They would love you. You are their daughter." Ariadne drew her hand back from Anna's. "I am adopted, Anna. My father is the Inquisitor. I do not have parents who are as understanding as yours must be." "But love is what matters," said Anna. "I would have no one but you. You are all to me, Ariadne. I will not marry a man. I only want you." "And I want children," Ariadne said, lowering her voice in case her mother was returning. "Anna, I have always wanted to be a mother, more than anything else in the world. If I had to bear Charles' touch, it would be worth it for that." She shuddered. "I shall never, never love him as I love you. I thought you understood that this would be a bit of happiness we could snatch for ourselves before the world forced us apart. We can love each other for the next year, before Charles returns. We could have that time and always remember it, hold it close to ourselves." "But when Charles returned, it would be over," Anna said coldly. "He would claim you. That is what you are saying." "I would not be unfaithful to him. No," Ariadne said quietly. "I am not a liar." Anna stood up. "I think you are lying to yourself." Ariadne raised her lovely face. Tears poured down her cheeks. She wiped them away with shaking hands. "Oh, Anna, won't you kiss me?" she said. "Oh, please, Anna, do not leave me. Please kiss me." She looked at Anna pleadingly. Anna's breaths were short, and her heart beat a wailing tattoo in her chest. The perfect world she had dreamed of was shattered into a million pieces, turned to dust and blown away. What replaced it was something cruel and strange. There was not enough air to breathe. Hot tears stung her eyes. "Goodbye, Ariadne," she managed, and staggered from the room. Anna sat on the edge of her bed and cried for a very long time. She cried until no tears came and her body heaved reflexively. There was a soft knock on her door, and her brother peeked his head in. "Anna," he said, blinking his lavender eyes, "are you all right? I thought I heard something." "Oh, Christopher, sweet Christopher." Anna roughly wiped her face. "I'm fine, Christopher," she said, clearing her throat. "Are you sure?" Christopher asked. "Is there nothing I can do to help you? I could perform a saving act of science." "Christopher, get along with you." It was Anna's mother, appearing silently as a cat in the corridor behind her son. "Go and do something else. Something without explosives," she added, shooing her second-born off down the hall. Anna hastily scrubbed the last traces of tears from her eyes as her mother came into her room, carrying a long, beribboned box. She sat down on the bed and looked at her daughter placidly. As always, Cecily was perfectly dressed and perfectly calm-looking, her dark hair in a smooth chignon at the back of her neck, her dress a becoming blue. Anna couldn't help but think how ghastly she must look in her nightshirt, with her face blotchy and red. "Do you know why I named you Anna?" Cecily said. Anna shook her head, puzzled. "I was awfully ill during my pregnancy," said Cecily. Anna blinked. She hadn't known that. "I was worried all the time that you wouldn't live to be born, or you would be sickly and ill. And then you were born, and you were the most beautiful, healthy, perfect child." She smiled. "Anna means favor, as in God has favored me. I thought the angel had favored me with you, and I would make sure you were always happy, always content." She reached out to gently touch Anna's cheek. "She broke your heart, didn't she, Ariadne?" Anna was speechless. So her mother did know. She had always thought her mother knew that she loved women and that her father did as well, but they had never spoken of it until now. "I am so sorry." Cecily kissed Anna's forehead. "My darling, lovely one. I know it does not help to be told it, but someone else will come, and she will treat your heart as the precious gift it is." "Mama," she said, "you do not mind that I might not get married or have children? There are many Shadowhunter children orphaned, as Ariadne was, seeking loving homes, and I see no reason why you might not provide one someday." "As for marriage," Cecily shrugged, "they said your Uncle Will could not be with your Aunt Tessa, that your Aunt Sophie and Uncle Gideon could not be together, and yet I think you will find that they were wrong, and they would have been wrong even if marriage had been forbidden them. Even where laws are unjust, hearts can find a way to be together. If you love someone, I have no doubt you will find a way to spend your life with them, Anna. You are the most determined child I know." "I am not a child," Anna said, but she smiled, in some amazement. Ariadne might have disappointed her, but her mother was astonishing her in quite the opposite way. "Still," her mother said, "you cannot keep wearing your brother's clothes." Anna's heart fell. Here it was. Her mother's understanding could only go so far. "I thought you didn't know," she said in a small voice. "Of course I knew. I am your mother," Cecily said, as if she were the Queen of England. She tapped the long ribboned box. "Here is a new outfit for you. Hopefully you will find it suitable for accompanying your family in the park today." Before Anna could protest, a loud and demanding cry sounded through the house. Exclaiming, "Alexander!" Cecily swept out the door, instructing Anna to meet her downstairs in the sitting room when she was dressed. Glumly, Anna untied the ribbons holding the box closed. She had received many clothes from her mother in the past. Another pastel silk? Another cunningly constructed dress meant to make the most of her slight curves? The ribbons and paper fell away, and Anna gasped. Inside the box was the most gorgeous suit she had ever seen.
Charcoal tweed with a thin blue stripe, the jacket was crisply tailored. A gorgeous silk waistcoat in radiant shades of blue complemented a crisp white shirt. Shoes, braces, nothing had been forgotten. In a daze, Anna dressed herself and gazed into the mirror. The clothes fit perfectly. Her mother must have given her measurements to the tailor. And yet there was still one thing not right. She tightened her jaw, then crossed the room to get the pair of scissors. Standing before the mirror, she grabbed a thick fistful of hair. She hesitated for only a moment, Ariadne's soft voice in her ears. "I thought you understood that this would be a bit of happiness we could snatch for ourselves before the world forced us apart." The hair made a satisfying crisp sound as she cut through it. It rained down on the carpet. She took another fistful, then another, until her hair was to her chin. The cut brought her features into sharp relief.
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. She trimmed more in the front, clipped away at the back, until there was just enough to sweep back into a gentlemanly wave. And now it was perfect. Her reflection gazed back at her, lips curved in an incredulous smile. The waistcoat brought out her eyes, the trousers, the slimness of her legs. She felt she could breathe, even with the ache of Ariadne's loss in her chest. She might have lost the girl, but she had gained herself. A new Anna, confident, dapper, powerful. Hearts were broken across London every day. Perhaps Anna might break a heart or two herself. There would be others. Lovely girls would come and go, and she would remain in control of her heart. She would never be torn like this again. She was a Shadowhunter. She would take the blow. She would harden herself and laugh in the face of pain. Anna descended the stairs soon after. It was late afternoon now, though the sun was still shining bright through the windows. This day would last forever. Her mother was in the sitting room with a tea tray, baby Alex in a basket by her side. Her father sat opposite, engaged in reading the newspaper. Anna stepped into the room. Both her parents looked up. She saw them take in her new clothes, as well as her short hair. She stood in the doorway, bracing herself for whatever response was coming. A long moment passed. "I told you the blue waistcoat was the one," Gabriel said to Cecily. "It brings out her eyes." "I did not disagree," said Cecily, rocking the baby. "I just said she would also look very well in red." Anna began to smile. "Much better than your brother's clothes," Gabriel said. "He does dreadful things to them with sulfur and acids." Cecily examined Anna's shorn locks. "Very sensible," she said. "Hair can be cumbersome in battle. I like it very much." She rose to her feet. "Come," she added. "Stay with your brother and father a moment. There is something I meant to fetch for you." As her mother left the room, Anna felt her limbs go tingly as she sat down on the settee. She reached down to Alex. He had just woken up and was looking all around the room, taking in all the wonders anew, in the way that babies do whenever they awake and find that the world is still there, to be understood in all of its myriad complexities. "I understand how you feel," she said to her brother. He smiled a toothless smile at her and reached up a chubby hand. She extended her own, and he grabbed her finger. Her mother returned only a few minutes later with a small blue box. "You know, Cecily," sitting down and refilling her teacup, "my parents did not want me to be a Shadowhunter. They had fled the clave." "And your Uncle Will." "I know," Anna said. Gabriel gazed fondly at his wife. "But I was a Shadowhunter. I knew it then, when I was 15. I knew it was in my blood. Foolish people say so many things, but we know who we are inside." She set the blue box on the table and pushed it toward Anna. "If you will accept it," her mother said. Inside the box was a necklace with a glimmering red gem. Latin words were etched onto the back. "For your protection," she said. "You know what it does." "It senses demons," Anna said, astonished. Her mother wore it nearly every time she went out to fight, though that was rarer now that Alexander had come along. "It cannot protect your heart, but it can protect the rest of you," Cecily said. "It is an heirloom. It should be yours." Anna fought back the tears that sought to fill her eyes. She took up the necklace and clasped it about her throat. She stood up and gazed at herself in the mirror over the fireplace. A handsome reflection gazed back at her. The necklace felt right, just as her short hair did. "I do not have to be only one thing," Anna thought. "I can choose what suits me when it suits me. The trousers and jacket do not make me a man, and the necklace does not make me a woman. They are only what makes me feel beautiful and powerful in this moment. I am exactly as I choose to be. I am a Shadowhunter who wears gorgeous suits and a legendary pendant." She looked at her mother's reflection in the glass. "You were right," she said. "The red does suit me." Gabriel chuckled softly, but Cecily only smiled. "I have always known you, my love," Cecily said. "You are the gem of my heart, my firstborn, my Anna." Anna thought of all the pain of the day again, the wound that had ripped her chest open and exposed her heart. But now it was as if her mother had drawn a rune over it and closed it. The scar was there, but she was whole. It was like being marked all over again, defining who she was. This was Anna Lightwood. On the morning of October 23, 1936, the inhabitants of Chattanooga, Tennessee, woke up to discover posters tacked up on the sides of buildings on every street. "For a limited time only," the posters declared. "Magic, music, most mysterious merchant's bazaar. Pay only what you can afford. Enter fairyland. See what you most desire. All welcome." Some men and women passed these posters, shaking their heads. It was the height of the Great Depression, and even if the president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was promising more work on projects like the tunnel and trails and campgrounds underway in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, jobs were scarce and times were hard, and most people didn't have money to spare on fripperies or fun. And who wanted to travel all the way up Lookout Mountain only to be turned away because what you could afford was nothing? Besides, no one ever gave you something for nothing. But plenty of other Chattanoogans saw the posters and thought that maybe better times really were just around the corner. There was a new deal, and maybe there would be new fun, too. And there was not a single child who caught sight of the posters and didn't yearn with their entire heart for what the posters promised. The 6th of October was a Friday. On Saturday, at least half the city of Chattanooga lit out for the carnival. Some of them packed bedrolls or tarps to sleep under. If there was music and festivity, maybe they would stay longer than a day. The churches of Chattanooga were poorly attended on Sunday morning, but the carnival in the Fairyland neighborhood of Lookout Mountain was busier than a beehive. Up on top of Lookout Mountain, a local boy named Garnet Carter had quite recently established the community of Fairyland, which included Tom Thumb Golf, the first miniature golf course in the United States. There was the eerie natural landscape of Rock City, where his wife Frida Carter had laid out paths between towering mossy rock formations, planting wildflowers and importing German statuary so that the trails were watched over by gnomes and characters from fairy tale stories like Little Red Riding Hood and the Three Little Pigs. Rich people came on holidays and rode the funicular, which also happened to be the world's steepest passenger railway, the mile up from Chattanooga to the Lookout Mountain Hotel. The hotel was also known as the Castle Above the Clouds, and if all the rooms were taken, well, there was also the Fairyland Inn. For the wealthy, there was golf and ballroom dancing and hunting. For the civic-minded, there was the site of the Battle Among the Clouds, where the Union Army had, in living memory, driven off at great cost the Confederates. You could still find Minié bullets and other traces of the dead all down the slopes of the mountain, along with flint arrowheads used by Cherokee. But the Cherokee had all been driven off,
And the Civil War was over too. There had been a greater war in recent memory, and many a family in Chattanooga had lost sons or fathers to it. Human beings did terrible things to each other, and the traces of those terrible things were everywhere if you looked. If your taste ran more to corn whiskey than history, well, there were plenty of moonshine stills up on Lookout Mountain too.
Smooth, authoritative, and stable. And who knew what other illegal or immoral delights might be found at a mysterious merchant's bazaar? There were men and women of money and taste at the carnival on that first Saturday, rubbing alongside the thin-faced children and wives of farmers. The rides were free to all. There were games with prizes, and a petting zoo with a 3-headed dog, and a winged snake so large that it was able to swallow a full-grown steer each day at noon. There were strolling fiddle players who drew such melancholy and lovely songs out on their instruments that tears came to the eyes of all who heard them. There was a woman who said that she could speak with the dead and asked no coin. There was a magician, too, Roland the Astonishing, who grew a dogwood tree from a seed on his stage and then caused it to flower, drop its leaves, and grow bare again as if all the seasons were passing in the blink of an eye. He was a handsome man in his 60s, with bright blue eyes, a luxuriant white mustache, and snowy white hair with a black streak running through it, as if some devil had touched it with a sooty hand. There were delicious things to eat at such a negligible cost, or freely given as samples, that every child ate himself or herself sick. As promised, the bazaar was full of remarkable objects on display, tended by even more remarkable people. Some of the customers, too, drew curious glances. Were there people in faraway lands who had curly tails or flames in their pupils? One of the most popular stalls had on offer a local product, a clear, potent liquor rumored to give dreams of a moonlit forest full of running wolves to those who drank it. The men at that booth were taciturn and did not smile often, but when they did, their teeth were unsettlingly white. They lived up in the mountains and mostly kept to themselves, but here at the bazaar they seemed quite at home. One tent was staffed by nurses so very lovely, it wasn't a chore at all to let them draw your blood. They took a cup or two, for research purposes, they said, and to those who donated, they gave away tokens that could be used elsewhere in the bazaar, just like money. Just beyond the tents of the bazaar was a sign that led to the maze of mirrors. It said, "See for yourself. The true world and the false lie next door to one another." Those who went through the maze of mirrors came out looking a little dazed. Some of them had found their way to the very center, in which they had been made an offer by an entity that each described differently. To some, the person in the room had appeared as a small child, or an old woman in an elegant gown, or even in the shape of a loved one long dead. The person in the room had a mask, and if you confessed a thing that you desired, the mask was put upon you, and, well, you should really go and see for yourself. If, that is, you could find your way through the maze and to the place where that person and the mask were waiting. By the end of the first weekend, most of Chattanooga had come up to see for themselves the strange charms of the carnival. And many came back to the carnival on the second weekend, although by then rumors were beginning to spread of troubling behavior exhibited by some who had returned. A woman claimed that the man she was married to was an impostor who had killed her real husband. This claim would have been easier to dismiss if a body had not been discovered in the river, in all ways a double of the man she was married to. A young man stood up in church and said that he saw and knew the secrets of all the congregation by looking at them. When he began to say these secrets out loud, the pastor tried to shout him down until the man began to declaim the things he knew about the pastor. At this, the pastor fell silent, then left his church and went home and slit his throat.
Another man won again and again at a weekly game of poker, until, drunk, he confessed, sounding astonished, that he could see the cards every man there held, as if they were his very own hand. He proved this by calling out each card in order, and after that was beaten soundly and left unconscious and bloody in the street by men who had been his friends since childhood. A boy of 17, newly engaged to be married, came home from the carnival and that night woke up everyone in his household screaming. He had put out his own eyes with 2 hot coals, but refused to say why. In fact, he never spoke again, and his poor fiancée at last broke off the engagement and went to live with an aunt in Baltimore. A beautiful girl turned up at the Fairyland Inn at dusk one evening, claiming that she was Mrs. Dalgrey, when the staff of the inn knew very well Mrs. Dalgrey was a bucket-faced dowager in her late 70s. She stayed at the inn every fall and never tipped anyone, no matter how good the service. Other terrible incidents were reported in the neighborhoods of Chattanooga, and by the middle of the week after the carnival had put up its signs, word of these happenings had made their way to those whose business it was to prevent the human world from being troubled and tormented by the malicious whims of downwarders and demons. It is only to be expected that some amount of trouble will arrive with a carnival. Pleasure and trouble are brother and sister to each other. But there were indications that this particular carnival was more than it seemed. For one thing, the bazaar of the bazaar was not just trinkets and gaudy junk. The bazaar was a full-on shadow market where there had never been one before, and humans were strolling its aisles and freely handling its wares. And there were indications, too, that there was an artifact made out of adamas in the hands of one who should not have had it. For this reason, on Thursday the 29th of October, a portal opened at Lookout Point, and 2 individuals who had only just met stepped through it unnoticed by any of the human sightseers gathered there. One was a young woman not yet fully invested as an Iron Sister, although already her hands showed the scars and calluses of one who worked adamas. Her name was Amelia, and this was the last task her sisters had set her before she joined their company: to recover the adamas and bring it back to the adamant citadel. She had a smiling, watchful face, as if she liked the world but didn't quite trust that it would be on its best behavior. His companion was a silent brother who bore the runic marks on his face, although neither his eyes nor his mouth had been sewn shut. Instead, they were merely closed, as if he had voluntarily chosen to withdraw inside the citadel of his own self. He was handsome enough that if any of the women at Lookout Point had seen his face, 1 or 2 might have thought of fairy tales, where a kiss is sufficient to wake one who is under an enchantment. Sister Amelia, who could see Brother Zachariah quite plainly, thought he was one of the handsomest men she had ever seen. Certainly, he was one of the first men she had seen in quite some time. And if their errands were successful, and she returned to the Iron Citadel with the adamas in her possession, well, it wouldn't be the worst thing if handsome Brother Zachariah was the last man she ever laid eyes on. There was no harm in appreciating beauty when you chanced upon it.